limitations are a challenge for any exhibit developer and are often the result of a lack of familiarity with the exhibit development process. The work Mother Emanuel's Memorabilia Subcommittee took on was not something that they sought. It was thrust upon them under the most difficult circumstances. It was and is a painful job that they are willing to do for their church and their community. Most of the generous folks on the subcommittee never put an exhibit together, didn't understand the many tasks involved, and justifiably were not in the mindset to learn. Therefore, it was our job to listen carefully and do our best to respond to their wishes. We reined in our natural planner instincts to ask a million questions about who's the audience and what's the big message you want to share and what are your goals and objectives for the exhibit, etc. Somehow those questions felt inappropriate and unnecessary, and the answers obvious. In reality, they are still appropriate questions to ask, but just a little more difficult to explore in these kinds of situations. In fact, in 2016, the subcommittee really had worked through most of these questions as at the time we joined the team. The other challenge we faced was an emotional one. My team all lives in Charleston. In the days after the shooting, we all made our own pilgrimages to the church to leave flowers or a message, some of us multiple times. In 2016, we felt very honored to be asked to help with the memorial exhibit, and perhaps we were a little surprised by our own emotional response to the experience. I don't think there was a day in 2016 or 2017 when one of us didn't have to stop what we were doing and collect ourselves. The emotions and the outpouring of love and kindness represented by the pictures and quilts and mementos often brought us to tears, and by the end of a long day, my team was often exhausted, both mentally and emotionally. I remember the day we went through the boxes and found the cranes, and just thought about there's 1,001 cranes, and that's sort of part of the story. And I just thought about the work we represented. This past year, I was going through some boxes when we were looking for pieces of art, and I opened a box that had hand-drawn portraits of the 9 church members, and emotion just catches you, and I had to stop and I had to walk outside for a wee bit and then come back in. But it made me think that if I feel this way and I'm struggling to work with this material, and I'm just a community member, how does Liz feel? How do the committee members manage to do their important work? What can I do to make this easier for them? I think some of the answers to those questions are: be generous and open, listen, do your best with what you have, don't be afraid to make a mistake, resist the temptation to say I can't do everything, so I won't do anything, and remember that every action that lifts up others is better than no action at all. Finally, I learned 2 important lessons from this experience, and George really has kind of touched on this already. Build community relationships. We could not have been successful if George hadn't felt like he could call Liz, if Liz hadn't felt like she could reach out to the city and museum community, if the city and the church hadn't felt like they could call a private firm like mine and ask for help. Perhaps these kinds of bridges can be built after a tragedy, communities rally together, but I'm sure many of the items left at Emanuel would have been lost if George and Liz had not recognized the importance of preserving them as part of the history of the church, and Liz had not found the courage and the heart to take on this overwhelming project. The second lesson is don't give in to the negative. There are people who question the value of saving the mementos or found them difficult reminders of events and want to forget. Others don't understand the power of exhibits to offer comfort and understanding. Then there are difficult times when emotions just caught us off guard. But if there's ever any doubt about the value of our efforts, if Mother Emanuel ever wonders whether they should continue to display these tokens of love and kindness, they should read this message from one of our visitors in 2017. Thanks very much.
That was very emotional for me to listen, and I've listened all the time. I think that Lonnie made us sitting there visited the exhibit, of course, I took the opportunity to say that we would like for some of these memorabilia items to be placed in the Smithsonian. So that's something that we are looking forward to. Thank you publicly, Lonnie. God bless you.
I want to thank Liz and Carol for their wonderful presentations. And I wanted to talk about what we can do to sustain the momentum, to move beyond the kumbaya moment, and what can we as history organizations do to mitigate or minimize the chances of such occurring again, if not prevented. So that's really what I wanted to talk about now. And so how can we sustain the waves of empathy and support that come after a moment after that moment. So, and one of the things I think is to have faith in our common humanity, to play to our better angels, and there's no one response. I mean, we need to listen, and it's not easy. Just continue working on, keep your eyes on the prize. Some of the ways that have been done in Charleston, and in other cities too, and I'm going to just enumerate some of these, is education, public programs, publications, and you heard about the exhibit, and also more particular racial reconciliation effort that we've got underway in Charleston. You've got some information in the handouts about that, the Charleston Illumination Project, whose purpose is to shine a light on all the dark corners of history of Charleston, including its dark corners. One of the ways that we've tried to sustain the momentum is through education programs, and Liz mentioned that, working with teachers out at Mother Naval. Another way is through publications. Then another way is through this building bridges through this Illumination Project, which is a structured process to work with community organizations, churches, schools, community associations, to engage in difficult conversations, but to provide a safe place for dialogue where we can do that. We wanted to start to engage people who don't ordinarily come to these kind of sessions. And we need to be very careful of the language. For example, if you have a meeting, it may be committee to dismantle racism. Well, some people may come to that, but a lot of people won't. A lot of people who need to be discussing that kind of issue will just be turned off by the language. So we need to be careful of the language. We also need to be careful of the place, so we go to where the people are and not expect them to come to us. Good point. And so we watch the language, and we have small group discussions, not town hall meetings where a few people can get up and dominate the conversation. And in these illumination meetings, consensus has not been the goal, but instead the dialogue is the win. And that's more inclusive. People feel a part of it. So much what we need to do. And the organizations have decided to follow up on their own, what they've wanted to do. There's been no dictate from us. So this is that Illumination Project, and you've got some handouts about that. Just an example that I wanted to talk about is a partnership between Grace Episcopal Church, right around the corner is Mount Zion AME, and Liz has been so much a part of that. We've worked with the ministers, and we've had okra soup dinners. And the reason why we use okra soup is because that's a traditional dish. So in your own community, there's going to be a traditional dish. If you're from Minnesota, it may be walleye. I don't know what it is, but you find something so that people then they can talk about that kind of dishes and keep it very simple. And here's a piece about okra soup, traditional dish. But you can, there at the end, it says that the quotation from the granddaughter of civil rights leader Esau Jenkins,